Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance and looked out at the stars. The ship was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines and the beeping of control panels. Jake had been in space for 20 years, but he still felt calm when he watched the stars move past his ship. "Admiral, we have a problem," said Captain Lisa Hayes as she walked up to him. She held a data pad in her hands and looked worried. "The coalition ships are moving again." Jake turned away from the window. Lisa was one of his best officers. If she looked worried, then something bad was happening. "Show me what you found." Lisa touched her data pad, and a big screen came to life. It showed a map of space with lots of little dots. Red dots were coalition ships. Blue dots were human ships. Jake could see that the red dots were gathering together in large groups. "They have been moving ships to the Arcturus system for 3 days," Lisa said. "Our scouts count at least 150 ships, maybe more." Jake looked at the screen more carefully. The Arcturus system was important to humans. Many trade ships went through there every day. If the coalition took control of it, they could stop human ships from getting supplies. "What do our spies tell us?" Jake asked. Commander Alex Turner walked over to them. He was in charge of getting information about enemy plans. Alex was a thin man with gray hair who always seemed to know things before anyone else did. "The coalition thinks we are weak," Alex said. "Their leader, General Korath, believes our wins in past fights were just luck." He told his officers that humans are not as tough as people say. Jake almost smiled. People had been making that mistake about humans for a long time. "How many ships do they have total?" 180 ships, Alex answered. "Big ones, too. Heavy cruisers, battleships, and lots of smaller attack ships." Lisa looked at the numbers on her data pad. "We only have 60 ships in our fleet. They have 3 ships for every one of ours." "Numbers are not everything," Jake said quietly. He had learned this lesson many times before. "What about their battle plans?" Alex touched his own data pad. "Standard coalition tactics. They'd put their biggest ships in the front and use smaller ships on the sides. They like to hit hard and fast with all their ships at once." Jake nodded. "The coalition always fought the same way. They had won many battles because they had more ships than their enemies, but they had never fought humans before." "Sir, we have a message from Earth Command," said Commander Grace Mitchell from the communications station. She was a young officer with red hair who was very good at her job. "Put it on screen," Jake said. The big screen changed to show Admiral Kate Sullivan. She was sitting in her office on Earth, and she looked tired. Kate had been Jake's friend for many years. "Jake, the talks with the coalition have failed," Kate said. "They want us to remove all our ships from this sector. They say if we do not leave, they will make us leave." "What are orders?" Jake asked. "Hold your position. Do not let them take the Arcturus system. But Jake, be careful. They have a lot of ships." Jake looked at his officers. They were all watching him and waiting for orders. These people trusted him to keep them safe and to win the battle that was coming. "How long do we have?" Jake asked Kate. "Our scouts say the coalition fleet will reach you in 2 days. Maybe less." The message ended, and the screen went back to showing the star map. Jake looked at all the red dots moving toward his position. Any other fleet commander might be scared. But Jake knew something the coalition did not know. "Lisa, send a message to all ship commanders. Tell them to come to the Vengeance for a meeting in 2 hours." "Yes, sir," Lisa said, and walked back to her station. Jake turned to Alex. "I want to know everything about their ships. How fast they are, what weapons they have, how their crews are trained. Everything. I will get you a full report," Alex promised. As his officers went back to work, Jake walked to his private office behind the bridge. He sat down at his desk and opened a file marked Protocol 7. Only human fleet commanders knew about this file. It contained battle plans that had never failed. Jake read through the plans again, even though he knew them by heart. The Coalition thought they were going to fight a normal space battle. They thought they could win by bringing more ships. But humans did not fight normal space battles. An hour later, Chief Engineer Ben Clark came to see Jake. Ben was a big man with strong hands who knew how to fix anything that could break on a spaceship. "Admiral, all ships report ready for battle," Ben said. "Engines are running perfect, weapons are charged, and shields are at full power." "Good. How are the special systems?" Ben smiled. "Ready and waiting. The Coalition is going to get a big surprise." Jake stood up and walked back to the bridge. Dr. Nina Foster was there talking to Leza. Nina was the fleet's doctor, and she was getting ready to help wounded people after the battle. "Doctor, how many beds do you have ready?" Jake asked. 200 beds on all ships combined," Nina said. "But I do not think we will need that many." Jake nodded. Nina was right. In past battles, human fleets had very few wounded people. It was their enemies who needed doctors. Captain Dan Brooks appeared on the communication screen. He commanded the UE Striker, one of the fastest ships in the fleet. "Admiral, my scouts report the Coalition fleet is moving faster than we thought. They will be here tomorrow morning." "Are your ships ready, Dan?" "Ready and waiting for orders, sir." Jake looked around the bridge at all his officers. They were calm and confident. They trusted their ships, they trusted each other, and they trusted their admiral. "Send this message to all ships," Jake said to Grace. "Tomorrow we show the Coalition why nobody attacks a human fleet. Get some rest tonight. We have work to do in the morning." As the night went on, Jake walked through his ship and talked to his crew. They were cleaning weapons, checking systems, and getting ready for battle. But nobody looked scared. They looked ready. Jake knew that across space, the Coalition fleet was also getting ready. But they were getting ready for the wrong kind of fight. They thought they were going to destroy a small human fleet that could not defend itself. We're about to learn that attacking humans always costs more than anyone wants to pay. General Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his fleet move through space. 180 ships flew in perfect formation around him. It was the biggest fleet the Coalition had ever put together. "General, we will reach the human ships in 4 hours," said Captain Zek Haran, his second in command. Zek was a careful officer who always worried about things that could go wrong. "Good," Korath said. "This will be the easiest battle we have ever fought." Korath was a big alien with green skin and 4 arms. He had won many battles for the Coalition by bringing more ships than his enemies could fight. Today would be no different. "Sir, the humans only have 60 ships," said Lieutenant Vex Morin from the scanning station. "We have 3 ships for every one of theirs." Korath smiled. His teeth were sharp and white. "The humans are famous for being tough fighters, but I think that is just stories. They have never fought the Coalition before." Captain Ray Phillips watched the Coalition fleet approach from his position on the human destroyer U.E.'s Thunder. His job was to count enemy ships and report what he saw. "Admiral Morrison, I count 180 Coalition ships," Ray said into his communicator. "They are flying in standard attack formation." "Keep watching them, Ray," Jake's voice came back. "Tell me if they do anything unusual." Ray looked at his screens. The Coalition ships were flying exactly like the training books said they should. Big ships in the center, smaller ships on the sides, support ships in the back. It was the same formation every Coalition commander used. Back on the Coalition flagship, Korath called a meeting of all his ship commanders. Their faces appeared on screens around the bridge. There were captains from many different worlds. but they all serve the coalition now. Today we crush the human fleet, Korath told them. I have studied their past battles. They won because they fought weak enemies who did not know how to fight back. We are not weak. Captain Huron shifted uncomfortably next to Korath. He had heard stories about human battles. The stories said humans fought differently than other people. But Korath did not want to hear about stories. Our ships have better shields than human ships, Korath continued. Our energy weapons are more powerful, and we have 3 times as many ships. This battle will be over in 1 hour. One of the ship commanders on the screen raised his hand. General, what if the humans have some kind of trap waiting for us? Korath laughed loudly. What kind of trap? They have 60 ships. We have 180. There is no trap that can help them. On the human ship UE's Vengeance, Lieutenant Commander Sam Carter was studying the coalition formation on his computer. Sam was in charge of planning battle tactics for Admiral Morrison. They are doing exactly what we expected, Sam told Jake. Standard coalition attack pattern. No surprises. Jake nodded. Perfect. That makes our job easier. Chief Engineer Ben Clark appeared on the bridge. His uniform was dirty from working on the ship's engines, but he looked happy. All systems are. Ready, Admiral, Ben said. The special equipment is working perfectly. The coalition has no idea what is coming. Dr. Nina Foster was setting up her medical bay below the bridge. She had beds ready for wounded people, but she did not expect to use many of them. Human fleets were very good at not getting hurt in battles. Meanwhile, the coalition fleet continued to move forward. Their ships were big and powerful, with thick armor and strong shields. Each ship carried hundreds of weapons and thousands of soldiers. Sir, we are getting closer to the humans, reported the navigation officer on Korath's ship. Korath looked at the display screen. He could see the human ships now, small blue dots against the black of space. They looked tiny compared to his massive fleet. They are not running away, observed Captain Aran. Most enemies run when they see our fleet. Maybe they are too scared to move, Korath said. Or maybe they know running will not help them. But Korath was wrong. The human ships were not scared. Admiral Morrison was sitting calmly in his command chair, watching the coalition fleet approach. His officers were at their stations, ready for battle. Grace, send a message to all human ships, Jake said to his communications officer. Tell them to prepare for Protocol 7. Grace's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. Message sent, sir. All ships confirmed they are ready. Protocol 7 was a battle plan that only humans knew. It had been used in every major human fleet battle for the past 50 years. And it had never failed. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded the human ship U.E.'s Falcon. When he got the message about Protocol 7, he smiled. Tony had used this plan before, and he knew how well it worked. All right, people, Tony told his crew. Time to show these aliens why you do not attack human fleets. Back on the Coalition flagship, the crew was getting excited. They could see the human ships clearly now. The human fleet looked small and helpless. Sir, should we demand their surrender? Asked Captain Huron. Korath thought about this. Yes, send them a message. Tell them to surrender now, or we will destroy all their ships. The message went out to the human fleet. On the UE's Vengeance, Grace received it and played it for everyone to hear. Human fleet, this is General Korath of the Coalition. You are outnumbered 3-1. Surrender now, and we will let your crews live. If you do not surrender, we will destroy every one of your ships. Jake listened to the message and shook his head. Grace, send them our answer. Grace opened a communication channel to the Coalition fleet. Jake's voice went out to all 180 enemy ships. General Korath, this is Admiral Morrison of the human fleet. We do not surrender. If you want to fight us, then come and fight. But remember this when it is over. No price is high enough to attack a human fleet. On the Coalition flagship, Korath heard the message and laughed. They want to fight. Good. That will make this more fun. But Captain Huron did not laugh. Something about the human admiral's voice made him worried. The human sounded too calm, too confident. General, maybe we should be more careful, ... Huron started to say, Careful? Korath snapped. We have 3 times as many ships as they do. What do we need to be careful about? Huron did not answer, but he had a bad feeling about this battle. All ships prepare to attack, Korath ordered. We will show the galaxy what happens when someone refuses to surrender to the Coalition. The Coalition fleet began to move into attack formation. Their biggest ships moved to the front, ready to smash through the human defensive line. Smaller, faster ships moved to the sides, ready to attack from different angles. On the human ships, crews were making final preparations. But they were not preparing to defend themselves. They were preparing to attack. Lieutenant Amy Watson was a young officer on her first big battle. She stood at her station on the USS Vengeance and watched the Coalition ships get closer. Admiral, are we really going to fight all those ships? Amy asked quietly. Jake looked at her and smiled. Amy, you are about to see why humans have the best reputation in the galaxy. We are not just going to fight them. We are going to win. The Coalition fleet was now very close. In a few minutes, the battle would begin. General Korath was sure. He would win easily. His ships were bigger, his weapons were stronger, and he had more of everything. But Admiral Morrison knew something that Korath did not know. In space battles, having more ships was not always better. Sometimes having better. Tactics was more important than having more guns. The Coalition was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The battle began when Admiral Morrison gave a simple order. All ships begin Protocol 7. Phase 1 starts now. Captain Dan Brooks heard the order on his ship, the UE Striker. Dan had been waiting for this moment. He pressed a button on his control panel and spoke to his crew. This is it, people. Time to show them what humans can do. The UE Striker and 20 other human ships suddenly shot forward toward the Coalition fleet. To the Coalition officers watching, it looked like the humans were making a desperate attack. On the Coalition flagship, General Korath saw the human ships racing toward his fleet. He could not believe what he was seeing. They are attacking us? Korath said. 20 ships against 180? They must be crazy. Captain Huron watched the human ships move on his screen. Something was wrong. The human ships were not flying in a straight line like most attacks. They were moving in strange patterns, weaving back and forth. General, this does not look like a normal attack, Huron said, but Korath was not listening. He was too excited about the easy victory he was about to win. All ships, hold your positions. Let the humans destroy themselves on our guns. The human ships came closer and closer to the Coalition fleet. But they did not start shooting. Instead, they flew right between the Coalition ships, moving so fast that the enemy could barely track them. What are they doing? Asked Lieutenant Morin from his scanning station. The answer came a few seconds later. As the human ships flew between the Coalition vessels, they dropped small devices that attached to the enemy ships. Hull's Commander Grace Mitchell was coordinating this complex move from the UES Vengeance. She watched her screen as each human ship reported successful deployment. Striker reports package delivered, Grace told Admiral Morrison. Falcon reports package delivered. Thunder reports package delivered. One by one, all 20 human ships reported that they had completed their mission. They had attached electronic warfare devices to Coalition ships without being detected. Phase 1 complete, Admiral, Grace reported. Jake smiled. Begin Phase 2. The small devices that the human ships had left behind were not bombs. They were something much more dangerous to a space fleet. They were electronic warfare pods that could jam communications and disrupt computer systems. Suddenly, Coalition ships began having problems. Their communication systems started making strange noises. Their targeting computers began showing wrong information. Their radar screens filled with false images. What is happening to our systems? Korath demanded. The technical officer on his ship was pressing buttons frantically. Sir, something is interfering with our electronics. Our computers are not working properly. On the Hughes Falcon, Captain Tony Rodriguez was leading a squadron of human ships in the second phase of the attack. Tony's job was to confuse the Coalition fleet even more. Deploy the decoy drones, Tony ordered. Each human ship released dozens of small drones that looked like spaceships on radar. Suddenly, the Coalition's scanning systems showed hundreds of human ships instead of 60. Sir, the humans have more ships than we thought, reported Lieutenant Morin. My screens show over 300 enemy vessels. But Captain Haran was looking more carefully at his displays. Those are not all real ships. Some of them are fake images. Korath was getting angry. His perfect battle plan was falling apart. Order all ships to attack the human fleet. Destroy everything that moves. The Coalition ships began firing their weapons, but they were shooting at drone decoys and electronic ghosts. The real human ships were somewhere else entirely. Commander Pete Collins was in charge of the electronic warfare from his ship, the U.E.'s Shadow. Pete's job was to make sure the Coalition could not coordinate their attacks. Increase jamming power. Pete ordered his crew. Make sure they cannot talk to each other. The jamming worked perfectly. Coalition ship commanders could not talk to each other or to General Korath. Each ship was fighting alone, not knowing what the others were doing. Lieutenant Amy Watson watched from the U.E.'s Vengeance as the Coalition fleet began to break apart. Ships were firing in all directions, some of them accidentally shooting at each other. Admiral, the Coalition ships are hitting their own vessels, Amy reported. That is what happens when you cannot tell friend from enemy, Jake said calmly. Captain Linda Barnes commanded the U.E.S. Raptor, one of the human fleet's fastest ships. Linda was waiting for her turn to join the battle. She watched the Coalition ships spinning around in confusion, trying to find targets to shoot at. Admiral Morrison, request permission to begin Phase 3, Linda said over the communicator. Permission granted, Jake replied. All ships begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was when the real attack began. Human ships appeared from hiding places in the asteroid field and debris clouds where the Coalition could not see them. They had been waiting there since the battle started. The Coalition had been looking for 60 human ships, but there were actually 80 ships in the human fleet. 20 ships had been hidden and waiting for the right moment to attack. These fresh human ships attacked the Coalition fleet from behind and from the sides. Coalition ships that were already confused by the electronic jamming suddenly found themselves under attack from directions they had not expected. Sir, we are being attacked from behind, reported a Coalition officer. That is impossible, Korath said. All the human ships are in front of us, but it was not impossible. It was just good tactics. The humans had planned this battle for months, thinking about every possible move the Coalition might make. Captain Steve Hughes led a group of human ships in an attack on the Coalition's command vessels. Steve's job was to make it even harder for the enemy to coordinate their defense. Target their communication arrays, Steve ordered. Make sure they cannot get organized. Human weapons fired with precision accuracy. They did not waste shots on heavily armored parts of enemy ships. Instead, they aimed for communication equipment, sensor arrays, and weapon control systems. Coalition ships began to lose their ability to fight effectively. Their weapons could not aim properly. Their shields were not coordinating with their power systems. Their crews could not communicate with each other. All ships fall back and regroup, Korath ordered. But his order could not get through the electronic jamming. Most of his ships never heard the command. On the U's Vengeance, Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold exactly as he had planned. The Coalition fleet was 3 times larger than his fleet, but size did not matter when the enemy could not fight as a team. "Sam, what is our status?" Jake asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Sam Carter checked his displays. "All human ships report minimal damage. The Coalition has lost coordination completely. 37 of their ships have major damage." Jake nodded. The battle was going perfectly, but he knew it was not over yet. The Coalition still had many ships that could fight if they managed to get organized again. "Grace, send a message to the Coalition fleet," Jake ordered. Grace opened a communication channel. Jake's voice cut through the electronic static and reached every Coalition ship. "General Korath, this is Admiral Morrison. You came here with 180 ships to destroy 60 human vessels. You thought it would be easy. You were wrong. Surrender now, and we will let your crews live." On the Coalition flagship, Korath heard the message. He looked around his bridge and saw his officers staring at him. They all knew the battle was not going as planned. Double quote, "Sir, what are your orders?" Captain Haran asked quietly. Korath looked at his tactical display. His fleet was scattered across space. Many of his ships were damaged. His communication systems were failing. The humans had turned his advantage in numbers into a disadvantage, but Korath was too proud to surrender. "All ships that can hear this message, attack the human ships. Show them that the Coalition does not give up." Admiral Morrison heard Korath's response and shook his head sadly. "Very well, General. You have made your choice." Jake turned to his officers. "All ships, begin. Phase 4. End this battle." Phase 4 was the end of the battle, and General Korath knew it. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves hunting prey. They did not charge forward in straight lines like most space fleets. Instead, they flowed around the Coalition ships like water, always attacking from unexpected directions. Captain Roy Hamilton led a squadron of human frigates in a deadly dance around the Coalition heavy cruisers. Roy's ships were much smaller than the enemy vessels, but they were faster and could turn more quickly. "Target their engine systems," Roy ordered his pilots. "Make it so they cannot move." The human frigates fired precise shots at the weak points of Coalition ships. One by one, the big enemy vessels lost power and began drifting helplessly through space. On the Coalition flagship, General Korath watched his fleet being destroyed piece by piece. His tactical display showed red warning lights everywhere. Ships were losing power, weapons were failing, and crews were abandoning damaged vessels. "Sir, we have lost contact with 60 ships," reported Captain Haran. His voice was quiet and scared. "Our formation is completely broken." Korath slammed his 4 fists on his command table. "How are they doing this? We have bigger ships, better weapons, more armor. This should not be happening." But Captain Zekharan finally understood what was happening. He had been watching the human ships move, and he saw the pattern. "General, they are not fighting like us," Haran said. "We fight, each ship by itself. But the humans fight as one big ship with many parts." Haran was right. Every human ship was connected to every other human ship through secure communication systems that the Coalition could not jam. When one human ship found a target, all nearby human ships knew about it instantly. Commander Pete Collins was still jamming Coalition communications from the UE's shadow. He watched his screens as Coalition ships tried desperately to talk to each other. "Sir, the Coalition is trying to use emergency communication frequencies," reported his communications officer. "Jam those too," Pete ordered. "Do not let them coordinate any kind of defense." The electronic warfare was working perfectly. Coalition ships were fighting blind and deaf, while human ships shared information instantly across the entire fleet. Captain Linda Barnes finally got her chance to join the main battle. She led the U's Raptor and 12 other ships in an attack on the Coalition's remaining heavy battleships. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy every ship," Linda told her squadron. "We just need to make them unable to fight." The human ships attacked like surgeons with laser scalpels. They aimed for weapon systems, communication arrays, and engine controls. Coalition ships found themselves alive but helpless, drifting in. Space without power or weapons. Dr. Nina Foster was busy in her medical bay, but not with human casualties. Most of the wounded people she was treating were Coalition prisoners whose ships had been disabled. Nina treated them with the same care she would give to human crew members. "Doctor, why are you helping these aliens?" asked one of her medical assistants. "They came here to kill us." Nina looked up from the Coalition officer she was treating. "Because that is what humans do. We fight hard, but we do not hate our enemies." This confused the Coalition prisoners. They had expected humans to be cruel and violent. Instead, they found themselves being helped by the same people who had just destroyed their fleet. Meanwhile, General Korath was making a desperate decision. His flagship still had power and weapons, but most of his fleet was gone. He decided to try the oldest tactic in space warfare. All remaining ships ram the human vessels. Korath ordered over the few communication channels that still worked. "If we cannot outfight them, we will crash into them." Captain Steve Hughes was monitoring Coalition communications when he heard this order. Steve immediately contacted Admiral Morrison. "Sir, the Coalition ships are going to try ramming attacks," Steve reported. Jake had expected this. Desperate commanders often tried ramming when everything else failed. But humans had a plan for this too. "All ships, execute evasion pattern Delta," Jake ordered. The human ships suddenly changed their movement completely. Instead of attacking, they began moving in complex spirals and loops that made them almost impossible to hit. Coalition ships that tried to ram human vessels found themselves chasing ghosts. The human ships would appear to be in one place, then suddenly be somewhere else entirely. Captain Chris Nelson was piloting the UES Observer through an especially difficult evasion pattern. His ship twisted and turned through space like a leaf. In the wind, 3 Coalition ships tried to ram him, but all of them missed. "This is like a dance," Chris said to his crew. "A very dangerous dance." But the dance was deadly for the Coalition ships. When they missed their ramming attacks, they found themselves moving too fast to turn around quickly. Human ships would then attack them from behind while they were helpless. One by one, the remaining Coalition ships were disabled or destroyed. General Korath watched his fleet disappear on his tactical display. Soon, only his flagship and a few other ships were still fighting. "Sir, we should surrender," Captain Erhan said quietly. "We have lost this battle." But Korath was too proud and too angry to give up. Never. The Coalition does not surrender to anyone. Korath ordered his ship to make one final attack on the UES Vengeance. His flagship was bigger and more heavily armed than the human admiral's ship. Maybe he could at least destroy the human leader before his own ship was destroyed. Admiral Morrison watched the Coalition flagship approach. He could have ordered his entire fleet to attack it, but he did not. Instead, he decided to face Korath ship to ship. "All human ships, stand back," Jake ordered. "This is between the Coalition flagship and us." Lieutenant Amy Watson looked worried. Sir, their ship is much bigger than ours. They have more weapons and stronger shields. Jake smiled at the young officer. Amy, size is not everything in a space fight. Watch and learn. The two ships faced each other across the emptiness of space. The Coalition flagship was 3 times larger than the UE's Vengeance, with massive guns and thick armor. But Admiral Morrison had something more important than big weapons. He had experience. Sam, target their bridge, Jake ordered his tactical officer. Sir, their shields are too strong, Sam replied. Our weapons cannot get through. Then we will. Make their shields weak, Jake said calmly. Grace, open a channel to their ship. Grace established communication with the Coalition flagship. Jake's voice reached General Korath directly. General, you have fought well, but you have lost. Surrender now and save the lives of your remaining crew members. Korath's angry face appeared on the screen. I will never surrender to you, human. My ship will destroy yours. I do not think so, Jake said calmly, but you are welcome to try. The Coalition flagship fired all its weapons at the U's Vengeance. The human ship's shields flashed and sparked under the massive attack. But the Vengeance did not break. Return fire, Jake ordered. The U's Vengeance fired back, but not at the Coalition ship's strong shields. Instead, it targeted a small communication antenna that was not protected by the main shield system. The human weapons destroyed the antenna with perfect accuracy. Suddenly, General Korath could not communicate with his own ship's crew. His command. Systems failed, and his ship began to drift helplessly. Sir, how did you know to target that antenna? Amy asked. Jake looked at her with wise eyes. Amy, every ship has weak points. You just have to know where to look. Within minutes, the Coalition flagship was disabled. General Korath had no choice but to surrender. The battle was over. Of the 180 Coalition ships that had attacked the human fleet, only 54 were still in one piece. The rest had been destroyed, or so badly damaged that they could not fight anymore. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. The space around the human fleet was filled with floating debris and disabled Coalition ships. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance and looked out at the aftermath of the battle. Grace, open a channel to all Coalition ships that are still working. Jake ordered. His communications officer pressed some buttons on her control panel. Channel open, sir. Jake's voice went out to every surviving Coalition vessel. This is Admiral Morrison of the human fleet. The battle is over. Any Coalition ship that surrenders will be treated fairly. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your crews will be safe. On the Coalition flagship, General Korath sat in his command chair and stared at his broken fleet. Captain Huron stood beside him, waiting for orders. General, what should we do? Huron asked quietly. Korath looked at the tactical display one more time. Most of his ships were gone. The ones that remained had no power or weapons. His grand fleet had been destroyed by a force 1/3 its size. Send the surrender signal, Korath said in a tired voice. Captain Jane Murphy commanded the human medical ship UES Mercy. When she heard that the Coalition was surrendering, she immediately moved her ship toward the disabled enemy vessels. Prepare all medical bays, Jane ordered her crew. We have a lot of wounded people to help. Jane's medical teams worked for hours, moving injured Coalition soldiers to human hospital ships. The alien prisoners were amazed that their enemies were helping them. They had expected humans to leave them to die in space. Why are you helping us? Asked a wounded Coalition officer as Dr. Foster treated his injuries. Because the fighting is over, Nina replied. When the battle ends, we are all just people who need help. Admiral Morrison received permission to board the Coalition flagship and meet with General Korath personally. Jake took a small shuttle from the UES Vengeance to Korath's ship. The Coalition flagship was dark and quiet. Many of its systems were not working. Jake walked through corridors filled with defeated alien soldiers until he reached the bridge. General Korath was still sitting in his command chair when Jake arrived. The alien leader looked much smaller now than he had at the beginning of the battle. Admiral Morrison, Korath said without looking up. You have won. Jake stood in front of the Coalition general and spoke in a calm voice. General, I want you to understand something. Humans did not want this fight. We would have been happy to share this space with your people. Korath finally looked at Jake. Then why did you fight so hard? Because you gave us no choice, Jake replied. You demanded that we leave our territory. You brought a fleet to destroy us. What did you expect us to do? Korath was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, How did you defeat us so easily? We had better ships, more weapons, stronger shields. Jake sat down in a chair across from the Coalition general. You fought like you always fight, General. You brought a big hammer and tried to smash everything in front of you. But humans learned long ago that the biggest hammer does not always win. Then what does win? Korath asked. Working together, Jake said simply. Every human ship in my fleet was connected to every other ship. We shared information instantly. When one ship found a weakness in your formation, all our ships knew about it right away. Korath nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. Your ships fought as one unit. Exactly. You had 180 ships fighting 80 separate battles. We had 60 ships fighting one battle together. Commander Alex Turner appeared on the bridge carrying a datapad. He had been analyzing the battle and collecting information about Coalition tactics. Admiral, I have the final battle report. Alex said, the Coalition lost 126 ships destroyed or disabled. We lost 0 ships. 18 human crew members were injured, none seriously. Jake looked at General Korath. General, do you understand now why people say that no price is high enough to attack a human fleet? Korath understood. The Coalition had brought their most powerful fleet to destroy a small human force. Instead, they had lost most of their ships and learned that humans were even more dangerous than the stories said. What happens to me and my crews now? Korath asked. You will be prisoners until this war is over, Jake replied. But you will be treated well. When peace comes, you will be returned to your people. Captain Chris Nelson was monitoring alien communication networks from his ship, the UES Observer. He was listening to messages being sent across the galaxy about the battle. Admiral, you need to hear this, Chris said over the communicator. Other alien governments are talking about what happened here. Jake returned to the UE's Vengeance and listened to the intercepted messages. The news of the Coalition's defeat was spreading quickly through space. The hegemony has canceled their planned attack on human colonies, Grace reported. They say they need to reconsider their strategy. The Dominion is also pulling back their fleets, Alex added. 3 other hostile governments have sent messages saying they want to negotiate instead of fight. Jake smiled. One battle had prevented many wars. Other alien governments had been planning to attack human territory, thinking that humans were easy targets. Now they knew better. Dr. Foster came to the bridge to give Jake a medical report. Admiral, all our wounded crew members will recover completely. The Coalition prisoners are also doing well. Many of them have asked to speak with you. What do they want to talk about? Jake asked. They want to understand how we fight so well together, Nina replied. Some of them say they have never seen anything like it. Jake thought about this. Maybe some good could come from this battle after all. If other species learned how to work together like humans did, there might be fewer wars in the galaxy. Lieutenant, Amy Watson was at her station, monitoring space around the fleet. Admiral, we are receiving a message from Earth Command. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared on the main display. She was sitting in her office on Earth, and she looked relieved. Jake, congratulations on your victory, Kate said. The whole galaxy is talking about what your fleet accomplished. Thank you, Kate. What are our new orders? Return to normal patrol duties. But Jake, I think you will find that your patrols are going to be much quieter from now on. Kate was right. News of the human victory spread to every corner of the galaxy. Alien governments that had been planning to attack human space suddenly decided they had more important things to do. Dock Captain Dan Brooks received reports from human colonies throughout the sector. Admiral, all our settlements report that alien raiders have stopped attacking. Trade routes are opening up again. People feel safe. Jake walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. The debris from the battle was being cleared away by salvage ships. Soon, this area of space would look peaceful again, but the lesson of this battle would not be forgotten. Every species in the galaxy would remember what happened when the Coalition attacked the human fleet. They would remember that humans fight differently than everyone else. Commander Pete Collins finished shutting down the electronic warfare systems. Sir, all jamming equipment is offline. Normal communications are restored. Good work, Pete. Make sure all our gear is ready for the next time we need it. You think there will be a next time, sir? Jake looked at his electronic warfare officer. Pete, there is always someone who thinks they can beat the humans. But after today, it might be a long time before anyone is willing to try. General Korath was transferred to a human prisoner ship along with his surviving crew members. As his shuttle left the disabled Coalition flagship, Korath looked back at the human fleet. The human ships were already moving back into patrol formation. They looked calm and peaceful, as if the great battle had never happened. But Korath knew better now. He knew that inside those innocent-looking ships were crews who could fight like nothing he had ever seen before. Captain Haran, Korath said to his second-in-command, when we get home, you will write a full report about this battle. Yes, General. What should the report say? Korath was quiet for a moment. Then he said, it should say that the stories about human fleets are not just stories. They are warnings. And any government that ignores those warnings will pay a price too high to imagine. Admiral Morrison received one final message as the human fleet prepared to leave the battle area. It came from the Galactic Council, the organization that tried to keep peace between different species. Admiral Morrison, this is Council President Nexus. We have heard about your victory over the Coalition fleet. The Council wishes to formally thank you for maintaining peace in this sector. Jake smiled as he listened to the message. The Council had not been very helpful when the Coalition was threatening human colonies. But now that the threat was gone, they were happy to send congratulations. Grace, send a reply to the Council, Jake ordered. Tell them that the human fleet will continue to patrol this area and protect all peaceful ships, regardless of what species they belong to. As the human fleet moved away from the battle site, Jake thought about what had happened. The Coalition had learned an expensive lesson about attacking humans. But more importantly, the entire galaxy had learned that lesson too. The reputation that protected human space was not built on fear or cruelty. It was built on the simple truth that humans work together better than any other species in the galaxy. When they fought as one M.